It was in Oakwood in January,
Oh,
but I had it on the schedule for February
I have
at
to check.
Meadowbrook.
I didn't go
Okay.
January because it was the snow and
Snow.
everything.
Okay.
I was afraid to fall.
Do you want me to just reach out to Jack
I'll
and
call
ask
him.
him?
I'll
Okay.
call him and
Okay.
let you know something.
Sounds good.
It's not till the last Wednesday anyway.
Correct. Yeah. I can move over there if you want. Somebody can have Joyce in my spot. If you want. It's all right. No worries. We don't.
We used to call that the kiddie table. Yeah. Can you switch the plug on that?
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Excuse me? Oh, you had it on the, I'll grab it.
You want to?
Sorry, I'm eating my together over here. These five.
Good, thank you. Been loving the snow. 5 and 2.
You also on there because I don't fully know how.
Can you throw my go
Uh huh. Thank you.
I thought Elaine just said that. Did you say something?
Oh, I have no idea. I just said that we can sit down here.
If you sit down here, I'm gonna go down here.
I didn't want to keep that.
Nope, I'm good. Randy's not coming until later. All 5 of them are here.
Yes.
Everybody's here but Misty. just extras. No, or did you have a set yet? Okay.
Right. I don't mind being the first.
There she is.
Well, okay. I'm debating should I just talk from up here or over there?
You're fine. You do it.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to take the clicker with me.
Hit it to talk, but then if you, I'd like to call this work session to order. If we could have a roll call, clerk. okay. Mr. Henning?
Here.
Mr. Gorman?
Here.
Ms. McDowell? Ms. Kelly? Here. Mr. York?
Here.
Mr. Farmer?
Here.
And Planning Commission members, Mr. Foley? Here. Mr. Muncy? Here. Mr. Bills?
Here.
Ms. Williams? Here. And Mr. Ernst?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Planning Commission, for joining us tonight. We're going to discuss the charge council sent you about zoning codes and what your thoughts were on doing something about them. So I took the liberty of creating a few charts to sort of guide the discussion. I really think this is just an open discussion tonight, so feel free to chime in. I certainly don't want to hear myself talk the whole time. I'm really looking for your inputs and your thoughts, particularly on the presentation that Bride-Dale Clarion, is that right? That I thought they did a good job assembling the information and pulling it together to create a framework for discussion, and hopefully this will be a good jumping off point for what we do with that information. So just the objectives, talk about the request, and we can sort of have an open discussion on any challenges that you've noticed in our current zoning. We'll discuss the options as laid out by the presentation. I'll leave it up to Council and Planning Commission on whether or not we need to go back and look at those charts in detail. And then have some discussion on next steps to address. And I do have a proposal and some ideas. I've found if I come to these meetings with a blank sheet of paper, I will leave with a blank sheet of paper. So we can sort of tweak and adjust whatever I've proposed, and if we leave with something completely different, that is fine. Quick summary on what the directive was: to consider the restoration of residential zoning districts and report back to council. And you took that, had McBride-Dale Clarion do some pedigree background on what led to where we are with zoning. Like I said, I think it was a good presentation with information. And after looking at that, I know I had some concerns about zoning, and I threw a few up here, and I welcome your inputs on some challenges maybe you've observed with zoning that maybe we could address. The residential zoning is the focus of our request. I think my main concern, and these are just my thoughts, I don't speak for the city or anyone else, just mine, that we aggregated many of the classes into RSD, and that somewhat diluted our ability to have some control on granularity of housing density in areas where we could grow. Another issue I found was some issues with minimums and maximums that I created this phrase of, you could have a loophole to get past the intent of what the zoning was. And I would welcome some exploration, a deep dive into what that could mean. Conversation with Mr. York. In fact, yesterday you brought up concerns about PDD and overlays, and I have a similar concern with that. How much should they be used, particularly with their conjunction with the village of North Clayton when they were designed? How should they go forward? Another issue I had was lack of complete definitions. One was a state home that's not defined in our zoning. And I know Mr. Muncy has informed me we could leverage definition from neighboring municipalities on that, but I'm a stickler for definitions because that's half the battle sometimes, to be sure any definite or term we have in our zoning code is clearly defined. And one other that I'm adding on, it just would be a personal request, that we also consider what's going on with rural conservation zoning. The RCD1, RCD2 were formed for just agricultural, just one. And when you look at RCD1, there is no minimum lot size. And that could lead to maybe one of those loopholes to intent in our rural conservation areas. I'll open the floor up to anyone who might have some concerns that you've observed that you might want to share. And I hope there's at least a couple.
I just would say thank you for bringing us all together tonight. I know the Planning Commissioner Muncy had made this suggestion a few months ago at a council meeting, and when we approved the Plan Clayton back in 2019, only Councilmember Kelly, Councilmember Gorman, and myself on council would have been the approving body for that. So I know in the plan it says this is something to be looked at every 10 years. I think doing it on year 7 or 8 is very appropriate, especially with some of the challenges we've seen with some of the developments and citizens' lack of approval for them, along with citizens not feeling that they had contributed enough to the original study. I think there were like 208 or a little over 200 citizens in a city of almost 15,000 that participated in the original Plan Clayton. So I think getting input from citizens and us as council and a planning commission will be helpful to start these revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Henning. Anybody else?
But I think Plan Clayton was just approved by council in 2021, wasn't it, Ellen? Okay, so that's only 5 years. That's not 10 years, I believe, right? Okay.
That was the zoning code, correct? Yeah, July of 2021 was in the zoning code, was approved. Well, we have, I know Plan Clayton was signed in 2018.
Yeah, Planning Clayton, the comprehensive land use plan says that it was approved by council May 3rd, 2019, not 2021. It's not 10 years, but we're over 5.
I think I observed it.
Mayor, I would just say a couple of things. One is, I think we met in October. I think you were referencing the October Planning Commission, and to your point, McDale. Oh, what's the name of the consultant? McDale Bright. Sorry. Yeah, McBride. You guys gave us 3 options at the end of that, and I think, given the fact, I would like to put this out on the record that I think it would be helpful for the Planning Commission to rehear those, not only the context that's in that, probably hear that whole presentation over again, because it's been 3 months, with a special emphasis on understanding those 3 options at the end of that report. So just, just for staff to kind of keep that in mind. And then as a general statement, I mean, I would say, I don't think I want to speak for all the Planning Commission. I don't think anybody's against trying to look at some new ideas around this. I would say that I would hope that people would come to the table with the idea that maybe they have to give a little bit on each side. And also, I would hope that whatever we end up with is really kind of centered around what's possible and what's achievable, and particularly in terms of new housing. I mean, I've said it, in these meetings before. I think the city needs to grow, and the city needs to have new housing. And so I would just hope that whatever process we take, and I agree, I think it's good that we're at the table together. I just hope that we have an opportunity to do it in a way that, at the end of the day, adds value to the city. So.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. I agree. If we can find some consensus and some collaboration. And I think you're right also that there is going to be some give and take. And we just need to find that sweet spot. Find a good point to find a win and build on it, I guess.
I just have one comment. As long as we're looking at the good of the entire city of Clayton, I don't have an issue.
Yes, the entire plan. Absolutely. All right. Well, Mr. Foley, I'll ask you this. If McBride Dale Clarion at least gave us a quick synopsis of the options, would that be sufficient for this meeting? They are prepared to at least do that.
That I think I think that's fine. It would help me, I know, but also I think whenever this comes up in front of the Planning Commission, if it does, it would be good for them to do it again for the Planning Commission. But sure, both are fine.
Okay. One quick question from me, and it's just strictly procedural. At some point, I assume we're gonna. At some point, I'm pushing it. Is it plugged in? Here, let me see. Well, at some point in time, I assume that we're going to have a discussion. Open the floor up to public comment. I'm not sure how useful this work. I just don't know what the procedure is for a workshop like this. Do we go? I don't have an agenda in front of me. I apologize, but is the thought? We have the presentation, open up the floor, maybe kick some ideas around with council and planning commission on how we walk through the next steps of this, because I don't think we'll solve anything tonight. You know, it's not like we're going to take a joint vote on 1, 2, or 3 option, but we can at least get the public's input, because I think that might be what we're concerned about at the planning commission was, hey, you know, here we have these options. We don't know what the response is going to be from council. We had a few folks at the planning commission meeting, but you know, obviously we don't want to make that decision for everybody without getting some additional input. So if I had a suggestion as to procedure, you know, we can listen. I don't know if there's any
Public input at work sessions.
there's no public comment. Okay. Well, ignore all those questions and comments.
I guess maybe, with that being said, how can we get more citizens' input? I mean, that's a question that is concerning to all of us, and how do we get to that point?
I think, Tina, if you read the report, there was a lot of citizen input for the plan Clayton, more than any other group, any other city in the area has had in their zoning, whatever they might call it. I know called Plan Clayton, I know that, but.
I agree.
And we went through it, you were here, I think, when we did Plan Clayton, weren't you? I thought that's.
Well, it's funny you mention that, Tim, because I pulled there were 75 contributors. I know the report says 76, but apparently someone read their Microsoft Excel total wrong. They forgot to count the total, the header at the top. So what I did was I went through and searched for each name and the Board of Elections to see, are they a registered Clayton voter? Out of the 75, and I did this a couple years ago, and then it changed because I think some people moved from the area and their registration left. But out of the 75 listed, there are 26 registered Clayton voters that contributed out of that list of 75. Now, others have moved, and I try to catch, did they move somewhere else in the county? Some moved to like Union, or they're from Inglewood. But I guess, well, blame me being an analyst. I dig between the lines on some of those things. It's like, hey, it's great you got that number, but where'd they come from? And I've also noticed, too, they have those 26, none of them live north of National Road. And I think that's where a lot of the referendum issues are coming from. So we have to be sensitive to where is the input coming from? And yes, we're an entire city, but we also have to be considerate of where the input's coming from. And yes, all wards and citizens will get an equal voice. And ultimately, it's going to be, whether it be planning commission, council, committees, how are they going to look at this material, this information, and bring it together to where we can find some harmony in the city? So that's a challenge I think we're going to face with this. So where'd our screen go? Okay, all right. So I will open up if they're willing to at least present the options and the pros and cons, which I thought was good. I'm not one for necessarily giving recommendations, but potential courses of action. That's why I really liked what you did with your presentation. So I'll turn it over to McBride, Dale, Clarion, if they'd like to go ahead and go through those options.
Okay. So yeah, just so everybody knows, we have the full presentation from October in here. So if there's anything we need to go back to, whether that be maps or any of the analysis that we did, we can obviously do that. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and just run through the options. So the first option would be to maintain the current zoning structure. And that would be to continue utilizing the existing land use plan and the zoning map to inform zoning decisions and retain the current RSD's residential zoning district without changes. I know that it seems like that's, been the district that's been causing issues for people. So, this is really just a starting point to say, here's what we could do, is we could keep things as it is. Now, that may not be what everybody wants, but it's just one option. And these are just some of the reasons we've listed here. In terms of recognizing that the adopted land use plan was the result of a thorough planning process, it seems like there might be some opposition to that says maybe there wasn't enough engagement done on the plan, and maybe now it's time that we re-engage the citizens on the planning, on the land use plan and the zoning code. Some of the potential disadvantages of this, of looking at going through with option one, is that might not be enough separation and differentiation between the zoning districts. Mr. Farmer's pointed this out. I know we've got some slides in here that show what the differences are between the old zoning districts and the consolidated RSD zoning districts. So that's something we need to look at. We can go back to that as well. One other point here, this might be limiting the availability to respond to community preferences for lower and higher demand residential development in specific areas. I think the northern area of Clayton seems to be where there might be kind of a lack of that differentiation. So again, that's an area that could be analyzed further in terms of lot sizes, setbacks, and character. Those are all things that we can look at when we begin to analyze it with more depth. And the other potential disadvantage is that it could result in unintended development patterns if the market pressures or infrastructure constraints vary across previously zoned R1, R2, and R3 areas, whether that be roads, sewer, water, any city services that might be potentially strained if things were to ramp up in terms of development that could be affected by that. So that's just option one. Option two is conducting a targeted review of the land use plan and the zoning code. So what we could do is we could look at the land use plan and the zoning code in more depth to look at the future land use map to see if there's changes that are warranted. So, we have that existing land use map, but we could look at that. We could ask the public for input on that to see what changes are necessary. And we can adjust it from there. That's going to provide us an opportunity to evaluate where those lower density single-family housing options may be appropriate. And it also allows the city to verify that the current zoning districts align with community goals, infrastructure capacity, and market trends. Obviously, it's been almost 10 years since the plan was adopted. Things may have changed since then, and it might be worth looking at that. Some of the potential disadvantages of going with this targeted review is there was a significant amount of investment in time and resources from city staff, as well as the folks who were engaged in the plan. It also included a detailed implementation strategy, which I believe is a separate document from the land use document. So that would also need to be looked at to make sure that all of your zoning code, your land use plan, and your implementation plan are all in alignment. And yeah, that's point two there, is just alignment amongst the documents, so that way all of the city's documents are speaking to each other. Everybody can be on the same page about what they mean and where you're heading with that. And then finally, option three is reinstating the old zoning districts, which are the R1, R2, and R3. Each of them had their own dimensional standards and permitted uses, so this option would involve amending the zoning ordinance and updating the official zoning map and revising related planning documents and references throughout the zoning code. Now, some of the reasons you might want to consider this option is that it would provide an opportunity to look back at those zoning districts and provide a clear differentiation among single-family neighborhood types, offering more predictable outcomes for residents and developers. Point 2 here, it aligns zoning more closely with the historic development pattern and neighborhood character residents are familiar with. And then point 3, it may better align with the preferences of homeowners and potential buyers seeking a range of housing options within the community. Now, kind of the counter to that is that the RSD district as written actually does provide all those options. It's just a lower minimum lot size, and the footprint of the building on the lot it's a lot smaller. There's less restrictions in that zoning district, so that's just kind of one counter to that. And some of the disadvantages there on the right column, it's going to require substantial reworking of multiple code sections, remapping the zoning boundaries, reviewing existing property entitlements. It may also complicate new development proposals, and the reduced flexibility achieved through the consolidated RSD district may want to be considered. And point 3, it may not reflect current development trends and preferences due to rising costs, lifestyle choices, and other priorities. I think point 3 is one of the things that the Planning Commission discussed during our October meeting was, what are those housing preferences for younger families that may want to potentially move to Clayton, and how, the zoning changes might, potentially affect any new home builders and home buyers in the area. So again, happy to answer any questions on these. We can go back if we want to look at any of the analysis we did. Thanks.
I got a
Can I
question.
ask a question? When, and this is pulling from this document, can you go back a couple where it showed the old?
Look at the zoning map.
Yeah. Actually, and I'm referring to when they changed it from, when they simplified the residential codes on that document. I think it's in there. And my question about, and I should have asked it in
Are
October.
you talking about the chart that
Yeah,
shows the
that one.
differences?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Explain, two questions about this that come to my mind. One is, at the time, why do you think they made the change to the new system? And secondly, what are the trends with this, like with this kind of thing with communities, statewide, nationally?
Yeah, so I don't think it's any secret that a lot of new developments these days are on smaller lot sizes in general. I mean, we see lot sizes as low as 5,000 square feet in some communities, especially when you're bringing a new development to a city, such as Clayton. I mean, we see that in recent development proposals over the last couple of years. We could give you the numbers on that, but I'm sure you've all kind of seen that through the Planning Commission requests. To your other point, I suspect that, again, this is just a way that we added flexibility to the code. Of course, I wasn't involved with it, but that's, we see this in a lot of the zoning codes that we update at McBride-Dale. We do a lot of this. We're constantly working on zoning code updates, and a lot of communities want to reduce that lot size to increase flexibility and to allow for infill development within the community. So you're at least providing the option for additional housing.
Do you have examples from Montgomery County that have done that,
As far as,
reducing the minimum lot size?
I'm sure we could pull some together. The examples of communities that we pulled for you guys were related to the minimum lot sizes for their densest base zoning district. So I can pull that up if you'd like to see that. It's not exactly what you're asking for, but.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows I don't know of any Montgomery County municipality that has lowered the lot minimum to increase the amount of homes they can put up, that, especially in the northwest Montgomery County area.
Was this due to, the lot size is due to the cost of the land, cost to build, cost of developer, cost of the builder. I mean, everything costs more today. And with the rise of inflation due to all these things, is that, I'm trying to break it down further. Is that the reason why generally?
It's all related. They're all factors. I think increasing that minimum lot size, you are increasing costs. You're increasing cost strain on the infrastructure, the road networks, all of that. And so, as well as development costs. I mean, yeah.
Tina, I think part of it is for growth, to be able to grow the housing, the tax base, to grow the community. So when you have the smaller lots and you can bring the development into the city, that helps the city grow, that brings in economic development also. So you have more businesses coming into the area, you have more money coming into the area, and you have more people wanting to live in the area. I had mentioned this before, I am a real estate agent and living in Clayton, but working throughout Montgomery County and other areas. Inglewood and Clayton, they're almost always come up as far as the areas that people want to live in. And so we have folks that want to live here, and I think making the housing more attractive to, the population, having something here available for them is really extremely important, especially if we want to grow. If we want to stay stagnant, we're going to lose people to Centerville. Basically, they're going to go south or they're going to move out of the area. And, there's just other opportunity in south of town that could come here if we were open to that development. And so I think a lot of it, changing that code, did help make it more flexible for builders to be able to come in and build more housing. Now, we don't want to overdo it, I don't want to call out our neighbors to the north, but they did a whole lot more development. It's getting kind of congested in that area. So we don't want it to that degree, but we do want to grow. We do not want to stay stagnant.
So correct me if I'm wrong, just to ask you a question. So without new growth helps our economic development. It works in a circle. Without new growth, we won't get economic development there as well for new businesses. I mean, you
Yes.
see that when you're a realtor and you see people asking for homes, they want to know what's around you. They also, the top answer that I've heard is the schools. We have excellent schools. So, I mean, that should be why people want to move in with the family. But I'm sure you hear that all the time.
All the time, yes, and the Northmont School District is, up there. It's really an area, like I said, people want to live here. And so we don't want to make it so that it's still, not a sought-after community. And if we don't grow, it will, if you don't grow, you die, basically, or you just maintain status quo, and then that's not good either.
The only other way to increase revenue is taxes, and that only goes so far, and we just did that last year or the year before.
Yeah, I'd also like to discuss a recommendation that you may have for North Clayton that has sat vacant for 20 years with a lot of lots ready to go and very minimal growth there the past 20 years. We still luckily have had economic development things happen in there without developers going in and doing anything. But I think that's a prime example of lots that are ready to go, the infrastructure's there, no one's doing anything. I do recall hearing people not interested because the lot minimums were so near to each other. We actually, the most recent home I think that was built back there, bought 2 properties so they could have a larger property and a little more space in between their homes. So I'd like to get your thoughts on North Clayton also.
I don't really have any thoughts prepared on North Clayton today. I think Ellen and I have had conversations briefly about it, but it hasn't, I don't think we've discussed it in the context of the residential zoning districts revisions, if that makes sense.
I just think that's something we need to think about and address also, because that infrastructure there is ready to go.
If you don't mind, just with that, I mean, that's a whole, and we understand completely with that. Unfortunately, the developer with that is wanting something that Clayton does not want. So it's not that people are able to build on a lot of that land. It's because the current developer is not wanting to build what we're permitting or wanting. We've understood and heard council, you don't want apartments, which we've made that loud and clear to them. So it's not like somebody can just buy a lot from the developer there to build a house.
Are there not lots for sale back there? Because when
There may be some, but a big section of it is held by the developer currently.
Okay, yeah, I'm talking about the lots next to like where the Walker family lives. I know that lot's been for sale for a long time. Two properties down. There's been property sitting vacant there, and
I
then,
believe that's also Windsor.
okay.
Ellen, is that?
But do they, so they know those lots are being advertised for sale though for single family. There's signs up there right now.
Well, wait a minute, because Chris Miller just sold her house, and that's the White House next to the Walkers. And then they also sold the lot after that one, and they want to propose a garage on some of that lot due to the fact that they have kids and they can't park in the streets. So that was an issue for them. That's why they bought the lot next to them.
Correct, so people are proposing combining the lots back there. The trouble with that is that they have to go through a plan modification process, which is essentially a zoning change request to combine those lots together. That's very costly and time effective and constrains people in a lot of ways. And the development standards that are still attached to Village of North Clayton are extremely expensive for some people.
So that's nothing we could fix. That would be through their HOA to fix those zoning, so people could have the ability to purchase 2 lots and build a home with a larger width in between the properties.
Correct, so the development standards allow for a larger width lot, but a 90-foot lot standard is much different than a 50 to 59-foot lot standard. So it requires a certain, build up to the foundation and landscaping requirements, and even down to how your car has to be shielded and your driveway has to be laid out, or if it's a side entry garage or a front entry garage, or if you have to come in through an alleyway in the back. There's just different development standards for different size lots back there. So that kind of dictates what people can build and how they can build it.
Just to kind of
Thank you.
clarify too, in that particular development plan, there's covenants that require a new builder to go to the HOA and to get architectural renderings approved. So it's just a lot more restrictive. And I think in order to, it's just, that development plan is just so much different than a normal PUD. And, for whatever reason, that was a common thing back at that time in real estate development. And, to me, and this is just a personal thing, I don't like it, those type of developments, but they're all over the place, and there's a lot of them. And the economics of the time probably encouraged that development, but now doesn't seem like it's working, and the only potential resolution is probably going to be a new development plan or a complete changing of the zoning code, and that might require the HOA to do something about it. It might require the developer to propose something about which they have, like they came to do a modification to combine the lots, but I think the comment that I made at that is like, hey, you guys aren't going to have to come back every time. At some point in time, if you come back every time to change the plan, you're going to need a new plan. And
So since you're an attorney and I'm not, if we did it for one person, would the approval have to be done then for someone else since there's precedence that it was done? So I don't know if the crowd could hear him or not. He said arguably there would be precedence. I don't know what we could do from a city point, but I think a part of this conversation is getting their HOA involved to see how we can rework that. Because I think a lot of citizens would say, you have the infrastructure there on a lot of land, a lot of lots for sale, but nothing's happening. And they don't know all of the intricacies that Mr. Muncy just shared and Elaine and Ellen just shared, so thank you.
Not to mention the fact that the developer wants to not make any modifications in the plan, and they've come several times to talk about their idea, their plan, but every time they leave, the ball gets dropped. We don't hear anything from them, and they're not up for any type of modifications. For example, if we can't have apartments back there, they just drop the ball and do nothing for months. I think it's been, 2 years since we've heard anything from them. So where do we go from this point? How do we get them to respond?
Are they up to date on taxes also on all their properties?
As far as I know, they are. I don't know otherwise, but I have not looked at that recently. In order for them to modify the plan in any capacity, you have to have that affidavit of ownership. So that owner of the property has to be wanting that change. And so they own a lot of the properties back there, the vacant land that's back there to be developed.
I have a question unrelated to Village of North Clayton, but it's development, so, and this is just a thought, haven't really thought through it on how it would look or operate, but is there an opportunity to create the same kind of flexibility through overlay districts as opposed to complete changes in zoning? For example, we keep it RSD, but then we have an overlay district that looks similar to the R1 in a certain area, and maybe an overlay district that looks closer to, UR1 or something. That way, there could still be options for a developer to come in, but there's a set standard or a set procedure. I don't know if that would be an option or not.
That could be an option for zoning changes. Yeah, I think overlays are frequently used to, increase the quality of development in specific areas. So if we wanted to go back to the old districts, say, then we could maybe look at overlays in certain areas to increase those standards or reduce lot sizes in certain areas. That could be one way to do it without maybe rezoning the whole city.
And a follow-up to that would be how another option could be, okay, we keep some as RSD and maybe try to reintroduce one or two of the prior lesser or more density zoning districts. But my thought would be, is there a way we can look at the comprehensive land use plan, so Plain Clayton, and then the implementation plan to say, okay, maybe we don't have to completely change the infrastructure or the comprehensive land use plan, since we already have a couple areas identified, and then we have some outcry from the community to say, okay, maybe this spot, we'll put an overlay, or we'll flip that back to the prior zoning designation, but the rest of it, we're going to keep it the same because we've already taken steps in this implementation.
I think that's a good idea. One potential disadvantage that was noted on option 2, on the slide, if you want to go back, I don't believe in this argument because it says to the second point, significant time, I'm assuming staff time, consultant time, was spent on Plan Clayton. That's fine in my opinion, and I'm sure others would agree, because we can't say that the time was spent and then we're done. If the residents aren't happy with what was done and time was spent, we have to improve it. Especially when we are the ones up here making decisions on behalf of them. Some of us are, receiving a government salary, council member. So I don't believe that the investment of time and work is a good argument for a potential disadvantage. I think this is something that we should always be willing to spend time on.
I have a question. So during Plan Clayton, there was opportunity for residents to have input. But it's up to the residents to take that opportunity and to provide the input. So it's not like there was no opportunity, but maybe just not taking that opportunity and providing their information, their input into the Plan Clayton, because we did spend quite a bit of time on that. And then there was the implementation. So there was great opportunity for input. Was that opportunity taken?
I'll chime in on that a little bit. I think one factor may have been, some people have looked at it and said, oh, it's just a plan. I don't have to worry about that. That'll happen a long time from now. And then all of a sudden it was happening. And then I go, crap, now what? So I think this time if we do a revisit to this, and I'm not talking about a complete overhaul, I think this just needs some tweaks and adjustments with some resident input, that they can get back to, okay, this is a plan that's going to be applied, and we need to chime in if we want to say. And I hate for the city to I don't want to speak for the citizens of Clayton, but I think there are probably some out there that said it's just a plan, I'm not going to worry about it. So I'd welcome any other inputs on maybe why we didn't get as much resident input.
Yeah,
There
I
was
think
also-
the citizens want growth. And the other thing that was common as I was campaigning was that they wanted businesses here. They did not like having to go to Tip City, to go to Huber Heights or anything to have dinner. And I met a lot of them that was in their driveway on their way to another area municipality. And so it would be great that if we can offer our residents those types of things, then I think we're on the way to having a good plan for our city.
In the plan, there were short-term, medium-term, and long-term implementation of certain things. The short-term implementation were those quick fixes that we could do that would show improvement of the overall landscape of Clayton, which were done relatively quickly. So, and probably not all done, but still moving into the longer timeframes to get the other things done. So it's all on a plan with time built in to get these things done. So.
And I would just say we have to, I think that's just a very subjective phrase to say all of the citizens want growth. I think this is something that we as a new administration have to define what is growth. And I know people say smart growth, whatever, different words in front of growth. That's fine, but us seven on a council need to define what growth is, because I think citizens may think of growth as a negative word from maybe groups that did referendums. I think we need to be able to correctly define what we believe as a council growth is.
And I would agree with that, Kenny. But growth to some citizens could also just mean businesses. It doesn't necessarily always have to be housing, or it could be a combination of both, so.
It means different things to different people.
Well, part of the reason I suggested this was just because of my background. Anytime we resolve any legal issue, neither party is going to be happy. So it kind of goes back to some points that were made. Someone's going to have to give a little bit on each side. And the only way we're going to do that, however many people were consulted during Plan Clayton doesn't particularly matter now, because we got active problems now that I want to address, because I'm a taxpayer and I don't want all my money going to legal fees or development, redevelopments and all, any of these issues I want to get addressed. And I guess to that point that growth means different things to different people. At the same time, Kenny hit the nail square on the head. This is for council to decide. And I think the role of the Planning Commission is pretty clear. We're supposed to more so call balls and strikes and not make policy determinations. So the suggestion that I made to every citizen who came and spoke at the Planning Commission meetings is, hey, this is the code that we're dealt with. If you want to change that, you got to start, speaking up and telling your council members that, hey, we want to make some changes. But there are a few consistent themes that at each meeting for each development came up every single time. Density, traffic, and water. Those seem to be the issues. I think we can identify which properties or which areas of town are more or less subject to those particular issues, and we can say, hey, maybe this is a new overlay district, maybe the zoning needs to be changed here, because it's going to come up every single time, because those same individuals are saying, hey, we want new businesses, hey, we're tired of going to Huber Heights to eat, and it's like, well, I'm just the planning commission member. Mr. Foley, Ms. Williams, Mr. Bills, we're just planning commission members. Here's this plan presented to us, and we think it complies with the requirements, so that's what we're going to go with. But another theme on the pro-growth side is it's coming one way or another. Whether we like it or not, it seems to be that this area is just desirable, and it's going to grow. And, we can put whatever adjective we want in front of growth. But I do think that, this is, I guess, just me as a citizen talking as, council is going to have to act on this if we want to bring some clarity, and it's going to be a difficult decision one way or another, however we move forward. I just don't want the city to continue to fight over this issue. It wastes time, it wastes resources, it exposes us to liability, and quite frankly, makes the city not a desirable place to be.
I think one of the biggest things is that I think the citizenry needs to make a determination of what they see Clayton should be, and then work backwards from there. I mean, typically when we do any type of critical path method, we're going to work from where we want to be and then work backwards from there. That would probably give us an idea as to anything that needs to be looked at and re-examined in Plan Clayton or anything else that we want to call it.
So within the RSD district, properties with larger lots can still be built within that
That's
code,
correct.
right?
Yeah, it's just a minimum lot size. Yeah.
Right, so you could have housing built that was on a larger lot. I think the thing is that the builders are not, that's not in their plan. So they're not coming to build that size simply probably because of cost, because it does cost a whole lot more to build on a larger lot.
In my business, they call it max the min, maximize the minimum. And you're exactly right. It comes back to money. But they want to maximize their profit. So, point taken.
So then it sounds like we would be going with an option 2 hybrid of figuring out what the new minimum would be.
Well, looking at the clock, if no one else minds, I just sort of move it along. I do think my view is that we do, like Mr. Henning suggested, some kind of hybrid of option 2. I don't think it necessarily has to be a complete deep dive review, but to at least identify some problems, gaps, challenges, and how they might be a liability to the city, and are there some severe implications if we let it keep going? And then how do we deal with that? Given that, like I said, I don't like coming with a blank sheet of paper, and we'd have to switch back to the presentation, but I'll give a brief description. My proposal is that we form a review committee to take special focus looking at these issues and then report back to Planning Commission and Council. I will just leave it at that, and I would welcome your input after this meeting on what that would look like. Should it have members from Council, Planning Commission,
Represent,
That's what the planning commission is, isn't it? It's a review committee for council, and they report to council, and we take it from there. Because we've had all the problems that Mr. Muncy mentioned about the people coming, talking about the 3 or 4 different things you mentioned. They come here to council and do the same thing. I think the one thing that, with Plan Clayton, it was approved in 21, I think you said, Ellen, or 19, which was it? 19, okay. And Plan Clayton worked fine up until the last couple of years. And I think the one thing that is being overlooked at this point in time and is causing more than a little bit of problems on council and elsewhere is that Ward 2 and Ward 3 are practically developed. If you're going to come to Clayton, you're going to develop only one place, and that's in Ward 1. And people in Ward 1 don't want anything to do with any development. And we have to realize that we're going to have to develop in Ward 1 as we have in Ward 2 and Ward 3. Because I moved out here when I was a young man at 6 months old, and it was farmland in Ward 2. There was no Ward 2 then, it was Randolph Township. But, and Mom and Dad had a farm, which we had to develop because we were surrounded by developments. And we've been through all of this, and I know how the farmers feel, and I can sympathize with them to a certain degree, but it's something that the city needs to grow. And like I said, if we don't grow, there's only one thing you do. As some people say, die. The other one is to raise taxes, and we can't do that without the input of the citizens. And I think that we need to continue to look at the developers that are coming in, and we can set a limit on the size of the lot. But as everybody here tonight said, the bigger the lot, the more expensive the home. And we've had small lots in here that cost $300,000 and $400,000. And a young family starting out, that's a lot of money for the first house. And I know, well, many years ago, when we started out, we couldn't have come up with that kind of money to buy a house. And I think we have to look at the whole city and not just one ward in the city.
I don't think we have been looking at just one ward in the city. Elaine, if you wouldn't mind
Thing
coming up.
mentioned here tonight has been in Ward 1, Kenny.
Thank you. Let's remember, Elaine, please come up and remind us why we voted against the development off Janus and Westbrook in Ward 2 last year. That was presented to council in Ward 2. If you drive down Westbrook and look to the left, if you drive down Taywood, heading towards Westbrook on the left, you'll see many, many acres of land that used to be forestry that was taken down. They had anticipated developing. I think the former administration, had they approved it, it probably would have went to referendum. So yes, there are still parts of the other wards that are for development. But Elaine, if you could, and Ellen, if you could refresh our memory on the Ward 2 development that fell through last year.
So, yes, that was the 33 acres on the corner of Taywood and Westbrook. They proposed 101 homes. And I believe there was a concern for the water issue that already exists on Janus and their plan to have a swale in the backyards. Although it was a preliminary development plan and we didn't get into the engineering review of it, I believe that was a major contributor for the way that it was voted.
And there was a stoplight issue too, I believe, wasn't there, Ellen?
Yeah, they were going to connect to Taywood by a new road and connect Ponderosa and connect Orrin on the other side.
But it wasn't really followed through. The actual developer really didn't lay out an execution of a plan and didn't have the answers to a lot of our questions. Therefore, it wasn't a complete overall plan as far as we're concerned, and that's why I didn't vote for it, because I didn't see the future of it executing properly and not solving the issues at hand.
And what was voted down was the zoning change
The zoning
of it.
change.
It wasn't necessarily development that was voted down, it was the zoning change of it.
But the former administration was also approving other preliminary plans. We were approving preliminary plans, and had that been approved as a preliminary plan, they could have continued to move forward and address things. That was one exception that we did not move forward with them approving a preliminary plan.
I just want to say, one of the reasons why we are the city of Clayton is because Randolph Township merged with the village of Clayton, okay? And Tim, you've said this many times. Those people out in Randolph Township were told that they would not, that the reason we need to do this is to stop this. Now, I understand growth is necessary. I am not against growth.
No, The reason I said it was because the township was being annexed by Englewood and Union is the reason we had to, there would be no Randolph Township. It would be Union and Englewood, and Randolph Township would no longer be in existence. There would be no Clayton if we had not combined or merged with the village of North Clayton.
And those residents were told on the premise that there would be no development if this went through. So I understand that there's growth needed. I understand that. I am not against growth. I'm for smart growth. I think if we sat down with the residents north of 40 and came with a very good plan to say, hey, in this land, we're going to do 1 acre lots. In this land, we're going to do this many acre lots, and so forth and so on. I think giving them, rather than just a smack in the face to say, hey, we're going to build apartments in front of your house, or hey, we're going to build high-density homes across from your home.
We're up there now.
What's that?
We voted the apartments down.
After a very, very long back and forth, we voted them down. Yes, absolutely, we did.
We're not slapping anybody in the face. I mean,
Some of these residents were there before the city of Clayton was the city of Clayton. They moved out there because they wanted
A lot of residents
this.
were here before the city of Clayton was. The city of Clayton's only 28
But
years old.
we want to bring people in, but do we want to kick people out?
We want to get people out.
You want to kick people out?
No, I don't want to throw people out of Clayton.
Okay.
Heck, no, I don't want to throw anybody out.
So I would like to come up with a good plan for those people that are in those rural areas to say, hey, this is what we can do for you. Give you time to think about it. Because I know people right now that are planning to move out of that area because of what's happening.
We cannot, as a city, say what's going to happen because we do not own the land. The city does not own the land. The property owners own the land, and the developer has to go to them and say what they want to do. We cannot, as a city, we can only say what they are allowed to do. And that's what Plan Clayton is, a guide to do that.
Correct.
And that's
Plan
what we
Clayton
use
says
as
that
guide.
Plan Clayton says that where we just built a bunch of houses was supposed to be the Clayton Commercial Center.
But I think what we're missing is we can't, like you said,
That's what it
Tim,
says.
like you said, Tim, we can't dictate owners of land if they want to sell or not. I mean, we can't be dictators to landowners. How they want to sell it, that's just not how we are, and that's not our job to do.
Every zoning ordinance does dictate what somebody can do. And if that is turned down, whether through planning commission or whether through city council, then they have to go through BZA. And nobody wants to do that because nobody wants to get a variance because it sets a precedence. So I would say that city council through ordinance does dictate what a landowner can do. And they have a process to change that.
Right. So if I wanted to sell my house that's 5 acres to someone who wants to build a factory on it, city council is here to keep that from happening.
Ellen, can you interject on that?
Correct, so there's a permitted use, a conditionally permitted use, and then not address uses.
It's 7. I move
Can't
we
hear
go
you.
back into regular council meeting.
Wait a minute, can she just answer this question?
Every zoning district has permitted uses, conditionally permitted uses, and then outright unpermitted uses. So if somebody wanted to buy 5 acres and it was zoned RCD2, they could put a chapel out there if they wanted to, because that's a permitted use out there.
They could put a what? Could you repeat that?
Like a chapel or a church or a religious assembly, I think is what we define it as.
This is just from the Citizen Planning Commission perspective, while I respect, kind of the decision or the opinion, hey, we've done this before, this is what Plan Clayton was supposed to do.
It's the microphone.
Yeah,
It's the
it's the
microphone.
Yeah, so I'll just speak up, but I respect the position that, hey, we've already done this once before, that's what Plan Clayton was supposed to address. We clearly have a set of problems, and if we're gonna get through it, I think that, I like Mr. Farmer's suggestion. If I had anything to add to it, it would be that there are council members included on it, 1 or 2. There are planning commission members included on it, 1 or 2. But then that there are citizens as well. Kind of the same way we did the implementation committee. And, I guess the only cautionary tale would be, if we're gonna do it, if we're gonna make changes, then we do stick to them. Because the argument is we haven't stuck to the implementation plan, or we haven't stuck to the plan Clayton. And it's like, okay, well, it's not every day you get a second bite at the apple. Let's take the second bite at the apple if it means that we don't find ourselves in the courtroom or with 4-hour planning commission meetings. I know Mr. Henning mentioned there's some folks are salaried, some folks aren't. This is a volunteer position, and I'll remind, some folks who might have raised their voice at us in the past just on the planning commission, but this was just a thought that I had that I shared with Mr. Farmer as to, like, hey, how can we get everybody, all the stakeholders, to the table to discuss how to move forward from this? I mean, if not, we can just keep doing what we're doing, and that some people might like that. I certainly don't.
All right, with that, I want to thank, I'll go ahead and wrap this work session up. I want to thank Planning Commission for joining us tonight. I think we had some great discussions. I got some insights I didn't have before. I appreciate everyone contributing. I'd like to go ahead and adjourn this meeting and have a 5-minute recess before we start our council meeting.